So this is going to be an introduction on the tools and the connectivity of our profile sensor, the OXM200. So first of all, you type in the web server address of the device and you'll see the initial screen that you get is whether you want to start with the parameterization of the sensor, you want to start adding some tools to a program, or you want to import a loading file from a previous job. So we'll start from fresh. You'll see the application picture of the setup to show you what this profile actually means. To make life easier, I'm just going to view the profile rather than the other options that you have. So you can see the profile and the camera picture, the intensity and the camera picture, the profile and intensity, or just the profile on its own. So for ease of use, I'm going to use just the profile here. First thing I'm going to do is put expert mode on here and show the tools so that when I add them to the profile, you'll be able to see what it is we're looking at. You can pause a live image at any time to help the setup in case the parts may move. It's always good practice to press pause anyway, just in case there is any slight movement or shaking or anything like that that can interrupt the setup. So we'll press pause there, and you'll see you can save that image if you want to later be able to set up a program. So you'll see in the top bar the different tabs that we have. So we're just in parameterization at the moment, which allows us to see how we are achieving the profile itself. So the number of points in X is either max or half the number of points or quarter of number of points, which can influence the resolution and speed. Also the same is for in the Z direction, the number of points that we're binning and saving. You can use the automatic optimization of the profile to get out the best points, or you can manually choose what you want the exposure to be. And this, of course, exposure, just like a camera, increases or reduces the time taken to take the profile information. Okay, you can also change the laser power to suit. So it's a very dark object, a very shiny object. You may want to increase or decrease the laser power. You've also got here some of the algorithms used to produce the profile. Standard or upper COG or lower COG, and you'll see on different targets it will make a difference, but out of the box it will be in standard. Same for filtering, if you want to do some average filtering to get rid of some spikes, and you can choose the number that it takes the average over to give you that profile. But because we've got nice solid parts, we can stick to just the no filter. Triggering, again, it can be free running, so constantly taking readings as per the exposure rate. We can ask it to take it at different intervals, say every second, every 2 seconds, or just like a camera, a single shot where you send a trigger, or finally the encoder input, which maybe you're using to produce a 3D profile alongside the 2D profile that the laser is producing for computational reasons. Okay, so we've got quite a nice image here, quite a nice profile of the parts that you could see from the image I've taken. Next, we can look at the field of view. I've just set it to maximum, which will be these lines here, but you can see I can move them left, right or left to increase or decrease the field of view from all directions, up and down, from the top and the bottom. But if I just set it to maximum, in this case, that's okay. Right, off we go to now to add some tools. So I click on the measurement tools parameterization, and I have this new tab here open, and here I add some new measurements. and then it gives me some options what measurements or criteria tools I can add to do the inspection I want to do. So let's choose height, distance, etc. So as soon as I select that, it will automatically give me an average height over the whole of the field of view. If I open up the measurement tab, you'll see here that it's giving me an average height of everything that's there within this boxed area. Now, if I only want to take the average height, say of this section here, or of this section here, or of this section here, then I just move the area of interest over to that there. So if I want to take the average height of this section here, you'll see I'm given my value here, just the average here. If I want to take the minimum and maximum heights, I can just select them, minimum and a maximum. If I press play now, you'll see where those points are being taken from. So the minimum point is here, this crosshair here. The maximum point is this crosshair here. And the average height is this blue line across the middle here. Now if I move it to something else, for example, this flat line here, I can do that. And it's looking within this region of interest here, and it's giving me the average height, the minimum and maximum height. So there's a slight tilt on there. I can also, if I go back to my original profile here, do their delta. So that's telling me the minimum point versus the maximum difference in the field of view I've selected. But if I choose all the way to the top of those peaks, I say choose, I wanted to know the difference between this area here. For example, if I do something like that, it's choosing the bottom here to the peak here, and that's my delta in millimeters. So you can see you can do some nice little features for profile measurement. And you can see here, just to make a note, that just within one measurement tool, I've selected different criteria. As a note, you can only select a maximum of 7 measurement criteria in this bar here to display simultaneously. So even if I add other tools, I'll only be able to view a maximum of 7. So if I keep in delta and take away average, I can see now when I add and remove tools what is being viewed. Okay, so let's add something else, an angle tool. So you can see again, as soon as I add angle, automatically an angle tool appears, and it's giving me the angle of all the parts within the field of view that I've set. For example, if I just wanted to know what the angle, say, of this area here is, I just use the area of interest there, and I include just the angle that I'm interested in. So you have to be careful of where you're selecting. And now you can see it's giving me an angle of this line here in the plane of X. If I wanted to see the angle in plane of Z, it's giving me the angle there. Okay. Another tool we can do is, say, use the width tool, for example, and I can select, say, what is the gap between these two parts here. So if I choose, say, something like this, go. And I want the gap width, for example. It's now finding the end of the edge here, the end of the edge here, and finding this as the gap, and this is my gapped area, and it will highlight those regions. Do you see how it puts a bar across each one? And now it's telling me the gap is this and this. And we can define what we expect a gap to be. So what's the minimum edge height, the maximum height difference to say that it is an edge, and also what's the minimum edge angles for you to accept it that it is an edge, because you may have angled edges rather than perpendicular edges. So there's a lot of criteria that you can change within that. You can add other tools as well. So depending on the target, circle tools where you can determine diameters, widths, etc., etc. Or if it's straight edges, you can find edges in X and Y. But the special thing that we can do is do some distance measurements based on other criteria. So if we want to do, for example, I'll pick one of these, a caliper distance between 2 points. Tool comes up and it will ask me now, what do I actually want to measure from and to? You'll see it's appeared here. So I'll say, because I've only selected a minimum number of tools, say the distance here and a secondary distance here, and there you go, it's giving me a measurement between these 2 points from the other points that I've selected here. So I've asked it to give me the height of Z, the minimum height of Z, which is this point here, and find the maximum height in Z, which is here, and then measure between them, and the distance is roughly 9.7 mil. Okay, now we can, so we've selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the maximum number of tools that we can display at one time. For example, if I go back to here now and I select others, it still only allows me to select view 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I add more tools, you'll see that it removes one to replace them. So just to prove to you that you can only view 7. Okay. So if we go to parameters now, you can save this as a parameter. If I say to do that, I just click Save Parameters and save that. Then I can go to setting up the output. So you can see on the sensor here, we have the potential of using 2 digital outputs, an analog output, and also outputting the whole of the profile. So if I go to the digital output here, what do I want to assign the output to? Do I want it as one of those 7 criteria? So by the drop down, I can say, right, the delta height, so the difference between this point here and the top of those peaks, should be no more than point. So you can see here, as soon as I clicked it, it puts the number 1 output next to it here in yellow, and I say, right, as soon as it's reached over 7 mil, then that means it's okay. And I can have it as active high or active low, so normally open, normally closed. And what's the hysteresis that I'm allowing on the measurement, that sort of thing. Then I can assign output to, so if I wanted to have it as the angle, say, of that ridge, and I can put the, again, you see output 2 comes on here, and I say, right, anything over 40 degrees is good, then turn the output on, you'll see the number 2 is here. Okay, again you can change the polarity to active high or active low. Then I can also select an analog output if I wish to. So let's choose minimum distance set, for example, and you'll see the A appears here. So I've got 2 digital outputs and my analog output here, and I can choose here what do I want my analog scale to be. 0.5 volts, 0 to 5 volts, 0 to 10 volts, 4 to 20 milliamp, or 2 to 10 milliamps. And I can also scale where I want that to be. So minimal output point, so if I wanted it to be 30 mil, for example, and maximum, say 60 mil, I could do that. I also have the ability to invert it, so it goes from 10 to 0 rather than 0 to 10 here. If the user of the sensor also wants to output the full profile, you can do that via interpolated or raw data. That is essentially it. The other tabs are around the configuration of the sensor, where you can, again, like all our web server sensors, get the information on the sensor type, the serial number of the sensor, the IP address if you wish to set it also, and all the other network type devices, whether you want to use Modbus, TCP, OPC UA, etc., etc., and also about the UDP streaming of the profile. If you want to add a password to the sensor so that it cannot be adjusted without the right authority level, all this type of thing. And you can upload the firmware or other pieces of information to the sensor. They also have a condition monitoring of the sensor. So what is the temperature of the sensor, what's the supply operating voltage, how long has the sensor been operating, total operating time, etc., etc. What is the lifetime of the sensor, temperature, and all other characteristics. So this is all embedded within the sensor itself. So if we go back to monitoring now here, and we play, we can now view the results over time for any of the criteria as we select it. Or we can go to parameterization, and we can see all the information as it comes out here, and you can see the switching outputs, whether on or off, etc. Okay.